Picture this. The grill is blazing hot, the steak is marbled and ready, and the air is thick with the mouth-watering promise of a perfect meal. The sun is shining, laughter drifts through the backyard, and the anticipation is almost as intense as the heat radiating from the coals. You can practically taste the smoky, savory flavor before the first bite is even taken. Friends and family gather around, their eyes fixed on the grill, stomachs rumbling, and everyone's hungry for that perfect, juicy bite. The pressure is on and you can feel it. This isn't just dinner, it's an event, a chance to impress, to create a memory, but all too often the dream sizzles away. The result? A steak that's burnt to a crisp on the outside, yet still cold and raw in the center. Or maybe it's the opposite, a pale, rubbery slab that's been cooked to oblivion, robbed of all its flavor and juiciness. Instead of a celebration, you're left with a tough, gray disappointment that no amount of steak sauce can rescue. The texture is all wrong, the flavor is flat, and the excitement at the table quickly fades to polite silence. You did everything right, or so you thought. You followed the recipes to the letter, splurged on the best cut at the butcher, and even watched hours of grilling tutorials online. Yet, despite all your preparation, the outcome still feels like a roll of the dice. Was the fire too hot? Did the flames flare up at the wrong moment, scorching the outside before the inside had a chance to cook? Or maybe the grill wasn't hot enough, leaving your steak limp and lifeless. Did you flip it too much or not enough? Should you have left it alone or kept it moving? Every decision feels like a potential mistake, and second-guessing becomes part of the ritual. The stress builds, turning what should be a fun, relaxing meal into a high-pressure test you feel doomed to fail. Instead of enjoying the moment, you're sweating over the grill, hoping for a miracle. The real problem? Most of us don't actually understand how heat works when it comes to cooking a steak. We poke, prod, and guess, but the science behind the sizzle remains a mystery. We rely on old myths, like sear to seal in juices, and vague advice passed down through generations, not on real, proven science. Outdated tips and half-remembered rules only add to the confusion. The backyard barbecue becomes a high-stakes event, especially on Father's Day, when you want everything to be perfect. The pressure to deliver the ultimate steak is real, and the fear of letting everyone down is even more intense. But here's the secret. Steak perfection isn't about luck, natural talent, or even years of experience. It's about understanding the science of heat transfer, how energy moves from the grill through the steak and transforms it from raw to delicious. Without a precise method, we're essentially cooking blind, leaving the fate of our steak to chance. Every time we lift the lid, we're hoping for the best, but bracing for disappointment. The good news? There's a better way. By embracing a scientific approach, one inspired by the insights of history's greatest minds, you can finally take the guesswork out of grilling. With the right knowledge, you'll turn every barbecue into a confident, delicious success. For decades, home cooks and even some professionals have relied on a simple rule: cook your steak for a certain number of minutes per pound. It's advice you'll find in countless cookbooks and online recipes, and it seems to make sense at first glance. After all, if you know how much your steak weighs, shouldn't that tell you how long it needs to cook? But here's the truth. This method is deeply flawed, and it's one of the main reasons so many steaks end up disappointing, either dry and overcooked or raw and underdone in the center. The problem is that weight-based cooking ignores the real science of how heat moves through meat. When you rely on weight alone, you're setting yourself up for unpredictable results. You might nail it once, but the next time, with a steak of a different shape, you're back to square one. Let's break it down with a simple example. Imagine you have two steaks, each weighing exactly 1 pound. One is thin and wide, the other is thick and compact. If you cook both for the same amount of time, expecting the same result, you'll be in for a surprise. Should these two steaks really cook for the same length of time just because they weigh the same? Of course not. The thin steak will cook through much faster, while the thick one will need more time for the heat to reach its center. Here's what's really happening. When you cook a steak, heat travels from the outside in. The only thing that matters is how far that heat has to go to reach the very center of the meat. The weight of the steak is almost irrelevant. What truly counts is the distance from the surface to the middle. That distance is determined by the steak's thickness, not its weight. A thin, heavy steak will cook much faster than a thick, light one. So if you want to master steak, you need to start thinking in terms of thickness. A thick steak needs more time for heat to penetrate all the way to the center, regardless of how much it weighs. This is why professional chefs always pay attention to thickness, not just the number on the scale. So, next time you're preparing steak, put away the kitchen scale and grab a ruler instead. Measure the thickness of your steak and use that as your guide for cooking times and techniques. This simple shift in thinking can be truly revolutionary for home cooks. It takes the guesswork out of steak night and gives you a reliable, repeatable way to get the results you want. Letting go of the weight myth opens the door to a more scientific, consistent approach to cooking. You'll be able to follow recipes with confidence, knowing that you're using the same logic as the pros. Focus on thickness, and you'll unlock the secret to perfectly cooked steak every single time. It's a small change, but it makes all the difference between a good meal and a great one. Enter Professor Rob Appleby, a physicist and chef who saw steak cooking as a physics problem, heat diffusing through meat. He adapted Einstein's famous diffusion equation to predict steak doneness. The same math that describes particles in motion can tell us how heat moves through a steak. Appleby's formula gives us a precise, repeatable way to cook steak perfectly. No more guesswork, just science. You don't need a physics degree. Appleby's done the hard work for you. This Einstein-inspired approach is the secret to flawless steak every time. The formula L squared equals 4dt might look intimidating, but it's actually simple. L is the steak's thickness in centimeters, the most important factor. The formula squares this value, showing thickness has an exponential effect on cooking time. T is the total cooking time you need. D is just a constant for how fast heat moves through beef. In plain English, the thicker the steak, the much longer it takes to cook. You don't need to do the math. Just understand that thickness is king. This formula proves why thickness, not weight, determines your steak's fate. It's the science behind perfect grilling. Here's a surprising fact that can completely change the way you approach steak night. When you double the thickness of your steak, the cook time doesn't just double. It actually quadruples. This isn't just a random kitchen myth. It's a fundamental principle of heat and physics at work in your pan or on your grill. For example, if you're used to cooking a 2 centimeters thick steak for about 5 minutes to get that perfect medium rare, you might think a 4 centimeters steak would just need 10 minutes. But in reality, it takes a whopping 20 minutes. That's 4 times as long, not just twice. The reason is all about how heat travels through meat. Cooking time increases with the square of the thickness, not in a straight line. So, as your steak gets thicker, the center takes much longer to reach the right temperature, even though the outside is cooking just as fast as before. This is why thick steaks are so often burnt on the outside while still raw or cold in the middle. The outside gets blasted with heat, but the inside lags far behind, leading to uneven results and frustration. Most people end up guessing, poking, or cutting into the steak, and often pull it off the heat too soon, hoping it's done. That's a recipe for disappointment, especially with expensive cuts. But now, with this knowledge, you can look at any steak and estimate a realistic cook time based on its thickness. No more guesswork, no more anxiety, just confidence at the grill or stove. This means you can finally cook those beautiful, pricey steaks without the fear of ruining them. You'll know exactly how long to cook and why. Understanding this principle lets you plan your meal with precision. You can set timers, prep sides, and control the entire process, knowing your steak will be perfect. For thicker steaks, manage your grill's heat and be patient. Lower the temperature, extend the cook time, and you'll achieve even doneness from edge to edge with no burnt crust or raw center. Mastering this concept is the cornerstone of grilling greatness. It's what separates amateurs from true steak masters. When you bring science into your kitchen, you take the guesswork out of thick steaks. With this knowledge, every steak you cook can be a masterpiece. Juicy, tender, and cooked exactly the way you want it. You don't need a calculator at your barbecue. Just use the steak cooking time chart. Measure your steak's thickness, find the time on the chart, and grill with confidence. For a 1.5 centimeters steak, cook 1.52 minutes per side. For 2 centimeters, it's 2.5 minutes per side. Thicker steaks? 2.5 centimeters needs 4 minutes per side, 3 centimeters needs 5, and 4 centimeters needs 7. Even a small increase in thickness means a big jump in cook time. This chart is your blueprint for steak success. Adjust for your preferred doneness. Add a minute or 2 per side for medium or medium well. Measure, consult the chart, and cook with scientific precision. It's that simple. Even with a chart, the best tool for perfect steak is a digital temperature probe. Think of the chart as your map and the probe as your GPS. Grills have hot and cool spots, and weather can affect cooking. Only a probe tells you exactly what's happening inside your steak. Insert it into the thickest part near the end of cooking. For medium rare, aim for 52-55 degrees Celsius, 125-130 degrees Fahrenheit. For medium, 57-60 degrees Celsius, 135-140 degrees Fahrenheit. Pull the steak when it hits your target. No more guesswork. A good thermometer is the best investment for any cook. Combine the chart and probe for steakhouse results at home. Now that you know how to cook steak perfectly, let's pick the right cut. For bold flavor, try sirloin, rump, flank, or skirt. Leaner, beefy, and great for quick grilling. For tenderness and juiciness, ribeye is king thanks to its marbling. Filet mignon offers buttery texture and subtle flavor. T-bone and porterhouse give you 2 steaks in 1 tenderloin and strip. Each cut has its own character. Choose what fits your taste and occasion. Knowing your cuts helps you match the perfect steak to your perfect method. Cooking the perfect steak isn't magic, it's science, and it's for everyone. Ditch the weight myth and use the L-squared formula for reliable results. Respect your steak by cooking it with precision, not guesswork. Focus on thickness, use the chart, and check with a temperature probe. No more nervous pacing or slicing to check doneness. Enjoy your company, knowing a perfect steak is on the way. This method turns grilling into a moment of triumph, not stress. Measure, consult, trust the science, and be amazed at the results. Step into a new era of grilling glory. Your family will thank you.